Hello, my name is Jillian Hawley, and today I'll be talking about Bloom's taxonomy, and specifically the different levels of knowledge that are discussed in the revised version. Most of us remember Bloom's taxonomy from our teaching classes in college. Originally published in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom and his team from the University of Chicago, the taxonomy is a hierarchy of 6 different cognitive processes. It's often portrayed as a pyramid, with the simpler processes such as knowledge and comprehension at the bottom, and the more complex processes, like evaluation and synthesis, at the top. For decades, the taxonomy has been a crucial piece of teacher preparation programs, and teachers often think of structuring their classes so they can move their students up the hierarchy towards the higher order thinking at the top. What some of us might not know is that Bloom's original taxonomy was actually revised in 2001, with the changes being led by eminent psychologists who had actually worked closely with Bloom in the past. The concept of a hierarchy of cognitive processes did not change, but there were still some pretty noticeable revisions. As you can see in the picture to the right, the processes are now labeled as verbs instead of nouns, which emphasizes that these processes are skills that can be learned and grown. Some of the levels were also renamed. Knowledge is now called remembering, comprehension is understanding, and synthesis is creating. The position of the top 2 levels was also switched, so that creating is now above evaluating. But one of the biggest changes made, and one that almost never gets much attention even in the field of education, was not to the pyramid at all. Bloom's original research identified not only the 6 cognitive processing levels, but also 3 knowledge levels. Bloom understood that not all knowledge is created equal, so he distinguished between factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, and procedural knowledge, but he didn't go into much detail about these different types of knowledge. In the revised taxonomy, much more time is spent discussing the different levels of knowledge and how they intersect with the different levels of cognition. The revised taxonomy also adds a 4th level of knowledge, metacognitive, that Bloom did not address. So what are these 4 levels of knowledge? The simplest level of knowledge is factual knowledge, which is that basic information your students need to know before they can understand a lesson. This could include vocabulary, such as the definition of a noun, or simple memorized facts, like the date the Declaration of Independence was signed. The next level of knowledge is conceptual knowledge, which is when students can understand more abstract concepts like theories, models, or beliefs. Examples of conceptual knowledge might include understanding the different types of conflict in literature, the model of the atom, or the basic tenets of Hinduism. The 3rd level of knowledge is procedural knowledge, which is the knowledge of how to do something, as well as the knowledge of when to use certain processes or methods. This type of knowledge could include knowing how to balance a chemical equation, or knowing if an argumentative or informative writing style would be more effective. The final level of knowledge is metacognitive knowledge, when students are aware of their own thinking and thought processes. Examples of metacognitive knowledge include strategic knowledge, such as different ways of studying vocabulary terms, and self-knowledge, such as knowing which of those different ways of studying will work best for you. Another feature of the revised taxonomy is the examination of how the cognitive process levels and the knowledge levels intersect with one another. As I said before, not all knowledge is created equal, and the revised version of the taxonomy creates this grid that demonstrates that perfectly. As you can see, factual knowledge at the remembering level of the hierarchy looks very different from factual knowledge at the evaluating level. This grid also breaks the 6 cognitive processing verbs down even further, showing all the different skills that are included under each of those 6 umbrella terms, depending on the knowledge level on which your students are operating. So what does understanding the knowledge levels in the revised taxonomy mean for you as a teacher? Well, as I've said before, not all knowledge is created equal. Understanding that is an important foundation for teachers. Understanding that there are different types of knowledge can help you identify specific gaps in student knowledge. For example, a struggling student might have a firm grasp on the factual knowledge needed in the lesson, but he is struggling with procedural knowledge. Being able to make that distinction can help you individualize your feedback for that particular student. The grid of 24 verbs that was seen on the previous slide also makes writing lesson objectives easier and allows you to clearly see where your objectives lie in the taxonomy. This will help you ensure that you are not writing objectives that get stuck on lower levels of thinking. It also helps you scaffold your lessons and objectives so they truly move from most simple to most complex levels of thinking. Finally, adding metacognition as one of the levels of knowledge reminds you to give students opportunities to reflect on their own thinking and learning. From this, they can develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills that will not only help them in your specific class or content area, but can be transferred to other classes in the real world. Hopefully by this point, you understand more about the levels of knowledge addressed in the revised version of Bloom's taxonomy and have some ideas of how the knowledge levels can help in your individual classroom. I'm going to leave you with this quote to remind you that all of this, Bloom's taxonomy, the revised taxonomy, the knowledge levels, is only important if you use it to help your students never stop questioning, so they can be lifelong higher level thinkers, problem solvers, and learners. Thank you.